Live in a constant state of fear and misery. Do you miss me anymore? And live in a constant state of fear and misery. Do you live in a constant state of fear and misery? Do you miss me anymore?
Hello, everybody. So today is Sunday, March 24th, and we are bringing you Block Digest 167 at block height 568,617. It's not an even number. It's not as cool as last time. What the hell?
I need to pay
Bitcoin.
attention to those block heights now for more often, because now I'm just thinking, yeah, it's late March, it's spring, so it's feeling good here. How are you guys doing today?
I would like to disappoint you all. I am not a robot.
Not today. Sorry, robot voice fans.
A robot would say that too.
Actually, it wouldn't, because I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was an episode of, what's his face? John Oliver did an episode about robocalling.
Ew.
And no, it was
Yeah.
funny. Come on, Shinobi, it's completely safe. So the episode of robocalling, they actually, there was a guy, I think it was a journalist actually, he received a robocall, and he tried to get the robot to say, like, I'm human, and and it wouldn't, you could tell it was very obvious it was a robot. It would do this very fake, repetitious laugh and stuff, and it wouldn't answer the question of, like, are you human? It
British
just
man
never.
bad.
That just means you are an advanced model.
Yeah, you're the newest series AI out there. I do remember that. Like, yeah, it's pretty crazy that they wouldn't program it just to be like, no, I'm this person in this part of the world, and I have these many children or something to try and convince the people. But yeah, they're still figuring out that whole AI thing. Yes, British man bad. The opposite of the orange man. Bad man.
AI is a myth. It's just programs. It's just functions. It's just if statements. It's not some magic alien in your computer.
Yeah, actually, you're kind of right. It's really basic. I don't know how far it can go, but I was working on an AI stuff too before Wasabi. It's just a language teaching software, and the robot was tried to have a conversation with you and things like that, but it wasn't as magical as you see in the sci-fi movies, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Like here's the okay, before we get going, here's the thing with AI. Everybody imagines like the super intelligent thing you can never outsmart that's going to rule over mankind. That's nonsense. But the reality is even more terrifying. People thinking some stupid program that can only do a few things is that super intelligent AI, and just blindly listening to it and being steered by a stupid program that's scarier.
Yeah, I really never liked the idea that, we grab people that are really smart specialists in one area and field, and we hold them up and say, well, they know what they're talking about with AI, and that we should all be scared crazily about this thing whenever, if you look into it, these things are not really built out to do the sort of thing that people are so worried about. I mean, they really just, I don't think they'll ever really develop that far, because, I don't know, humans are different with their logic and thinking, and, really hard to predict. But yeah, AI, it's a thing we should deal with.
All right, so we just gonna dive into this.
Yeah, what is going on with something we should be paying attention to here in Bitcoin world?
Boom. All right, so are you confused about Lightning Labs releasing something called Lightning Loop Never heard the term loop before? Is that very confusing? Are you wondering what the hell it is and why the fucking blog post doesn't really explain any of the technical details? Don't feel bad. It's kind of confusing. It's pretty much just a submarine swap, which is what Alex Bosworth has been working on for a while, and actually had a custodial kind of prototype functional last time I checked. But this is pretty much a completely atomic and trustless version of this. And, you know, honestly, I'm kind of excited to actually see this dropped in a separate app, or you know, daemon versus the LND daemon, because I really would like to see, you know, LND moving in that kind of direction, kind of like Sea Lightning, where things are being modularized and pulled off into their own daemons. But this is really only half of the submarine swap functionality so far. There's going to be this one, which is the loop out functionality, and yet to be released daemon or functionality in this one for looping in. But effectively, and like this is me just kind of deducing from common sense here, because there's really no other way that this could work at a deep technical level. But pretty much what this would do to actually function is you would find a gateway node on the Lightning Network and route an HTLC to them that would probably require a longer than average timeout versus a normal payment. And then that gateway service would kind of just aggregate a bunch of these and then create an on-chain transaction, batching a bunch of them, all with HTLC outputs. And so what this would allow is pretty much you have the HTLC routed to them on the Lightning Network that's not finalized yet, like no pre-image is released. And then they would, when they're done with batching, finalize, sign, and submit their on-chain transaction taking part of this. And when you see that hit the chain, your loop-in client would see the HTLC output matching your Lightning payment, and then sweep that, and in the process revealing a pre-image for the hash lock that you would have. And at that point, then the gateway service that is bridging Lightning with on-chain would have the pre-image to finalize the hash lock payment across the Lightning Network. And so pretty much, like, just kind of think of it as like a normal Lightning transaction, except you have the hash lock pre-image instead of the person at the end of the payment, because it's a loop and you are the person at the end of the payment, despite also being at the start of it. And delaying the hash lock release until the on-chain transaction finalizes and you can sweep that is what guarantees that this is atomic, and that the gateway node on the Lightning Network has no way to actually rip you off. Like if they were to not go through with things or exclude your HTLC from the on-chain transaction, then you would never reveal the hash lock pre-image, and pretty much the route across the Lightning Network would just fail, and everybody would revert back to the previous channel states, or potentially be forced to close it out. Although from your local node point of view, unless you're literally directly connected to the gateway node, like that's, I don't think, very likely, because the node right over from you would just see this has failed. Okay, let's go back to the previous state. And it's not very likely you would run into any issues with having to fall back to chain. Excuse me. So pretty much it's like a nice construct. You know, it's something people have been talking about for a long time in terms of stuff you can do. And it's nice to see it actually finalized in a new daemon from Lightning Labs in an actually atomic way, instead of kind of the way these things have been being done, where they're purely custodial and you just have to trust the gateway not to rip you off. Now, with the reverse, the loop in, like this would likely have to work in kind of a similar way here. Like you would make an on-chain transaction that has the HTLC output, and that would have the path you can spend with the pre-image, or the path that you can take it back with after the timeout. And you would make that transaction on chain, that would confirm, and there would be a hash lock or a HTLC payments to you over the Lightning Network. And you again are initiating it and have the pre-image, except this time you would be releasing the pre-image over the Lightning Network after that transaction confirmed. And then because it's still an HTLC output, even though it's happening on chain instead of the Lightning Network, the gateway node would be able to sweep that HTLC on chain before the timeout would allow you to take it back. And so you would have the payment to you over the Lightning Network finalized, and then there would be a safe timeout limit decided based on on-chain traffic, where it's not practical that you're going to be able to take that money back, even though you got the money over the Lightning Network. And so really it's pretty much the exact same mechanics. You're just reversing the ends of it. And hopefully that's something we see finalized soon, because this would, you know, I still kind of have some questions about, like, if you are pretty much receiving everything in your channel and then do a loop out and then receive everything again and do a loop out, like how you could potentially aggregate that so that when the gateway does their on-chain transaction, you're not dealing with separate HTLCs. Although I'm not really sure like how you would really organize or structure something like that. But, you know, it's still a nice functionality in that you can receive a lot more money without having to have necessarily more inbound capacity in a channel itself. So it's really just something that would smooth out like some of the issues that are involved with actually receiving payments in terms of liquidity problems. And it's, you know, it's just really fucking nice to see this finally moving along here. Like we're getting to the point where a lot of these more advanced features that have been part of the discussion for a long time are actually rolling out. And I hope that, you know, keeps picking up the pace here.
Yeah, man, these you know, Lightning Network features are just going to keep coming down the pipe. It's like you're saying, it's good to see it come out in a implementation and people can start testing it out. Like I was talking to somebody the other night. We went to a meetup where people were discussing second layer payments on, unfortunately, it was the Ethereum, but it was talking about payment routes and hash time lock contracts. And yeah, that guy didn't really understand much, but, you know, there's really only one guy in the room. You know, there's a guy here locally who, you know, works on the Lightning Network. And yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's talked about these submarine swaps and also these interesting, what are they, AMP payments, atomic multipath payments, and just the whole governance levels of the Lightning Network and second layer. It's just like it's another layer of complication to where I was, yeah, it's like, it's understandable. Like not many people understand that much about it, but the more it gets in people's hands and people are testing it, and yeah, we'll see that development continue on. Was this actually going to help some sort of on-ramp and off-ramp for the Lightning Network?
No, it's not really dealing with on and off ramping, just more being efficient with how much liquidity. Like let's say that you had like 0.1 Bitcoin in a channel, but you wanted to receive a whole Bitcoin. Instead of having to get inbound liquidity in a channel of 1 Bitcoin, you could just take 10 payments, like take the 0.1 and then loop it out through a gateway and then take another 0.1 and loop it out, and you could just keep doing that until you have the whole 10 Bitcoin set up, and then it would cash out on chain. So like you wouldn't need as much liquidity on Lightning itself in order to receive money. And you know, it's with AMP especially. You mentioned that like when that starts rolling out, they're talking about redoing or updating the loop client so that AMP would allow you to do this with multiple channels at once, so that you could pretty much drain all of your channels and loop all of that out, so that all of your channels are set up for receiving liquidity.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting discussions. And I mean, we were just talking, I was like, how is the chain analysis on that sort of thing look? Where it's like, you know, like we're saying, I mean, there's already this huge level of complexity to the base layer where people take a long time to just figure that out. And then if you can make your way into the Lightning Network, it gets even more complex. And that goes with the same on trying to trace these inputs and outputs. And I mean, it seems like, you know, we're going to win this battle of chain analytics, but for sure it's going to take a while to build out in a slow, organic way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like people like to like point at things on Lightning and say this is a huge fundamental issue, but it's like there are a lot of ways to solve things. I mean, like, you know, just look at like routing and liquidity. Like people like wonder, well, what happens if like two sections of the network are very disconnected? Well, you can do a lot of crazy things. I mean, just like off the wall here, like let's say I'm on one part of the network and you're on another, and we know each other. There's nothing to stop me and you from just going, well, we don't have channels with each other or the money to make them, but I'll just say route this payment even though we don't have a channel, and I'll pay you for it later. And you can now bridge a whole group of nodes in the network without connectivity, and it doesn't affect anybody except you and me. Like everything would work exactly like it does normally, except you're counting on me to not rip you off. And if I do rip you off, I mean, that sucks for you, but it doesn't affect the payment. The payment still goes through. The person at the beginning gives their money up. The person at the end receives it. And like there's just all kinds of shit that you can do, just, you know, thinking a little bit outside of the box to deal with a lot of these issues. And yeah, it's not going to 100% solve all of them, but it can deal with a lot of them and get things a lot more usable than a lot of the air quote critics think things will be.
Yeah, we got a long ways to go. I mean, it's been on mainnet now for just a little over a year. I mean, it took Bitcoin quite a long time to, you know, get some of the stuff in order to where it was actually something a lot of people were attracted to and started using on a regular basis. So see the same sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so next, it is time to deal with an angry shinobi. So
Oh no.
everybody keeps pointing at Blue Wallet, keeps recommending people use Blue Wallet, keeps going on and on about how Blue Wallet is such an awesome Lightning app. It's not. And I want to say this up front. I do not think there is any intentionally malicious plans here. Like, I do not think that anybody involved with this project is being intentionally malicious. But this wallet is completely unfucking safe. And these people do not know what they are doing. So let's look back to January 5th when BTC Sessions was able to send more money than he had. He was able to send 800,000 Satoshis twice and wind up with a negative balance. So the cause of this was locking issues with the database, where you could have multiple payments think that they had an exclusive lock on the user balance in the database, while more than one payment is going through. And only one of those payments would be registered to change the user's balance in the database. When this was brought to their attention, they merged a pull request to fix it. It didn't actually fix it. They literally did not fundamentally understand that a core part of this issue is the thing they're using to manage the database. And again, like this, I'm not saying that they're intentionally trying to scam anybody or they're malicious, but they just don't understand what the hell they're doing. That is the single most important thing when you are talking about anything custodial. If a payment goes through, the user balance changes. They have to be atomic. They have to be exactly in lockstep. If the balance doesn't have enough money, the payment can't go through. These things have to be completely in sync every single time, no matter what, or that thing can go insolvent. They completely fucked this up. And when they first tried to fix it, didn't actually fix it because they weren't looking at the fundamental issue going on here. They just slapped some new code in there and assumed this fixes it. Let's move on to the next issue. Around the same time. And again, this is the result of somebody just seeing something on Twitter and digging through the code and finding a shit ton of issues. The exact same thing that was going on with payments and the user's balance database is also going on when you request a deposit address. So it was actually possible because of, yet again, another issue in terms of interacting with the database, to receive a deposit address or multiple addresses from the application where only one of them would actually be linked to you as a user in the balance database. So you could seriously get a deposit address from this wallet, send coins there, and their database would not recognize that you just deposited money. It would not connect that address to your balance. It would not update your balance, and you would be unable to spend money. This is the second thing with this exact same issue in fucking up how you're managing the database that keeps track of users' wallets. Like, that is not fucking safe. This application is not safe to use. The most recent issue, 4 days ago, somebody pointed out, I believe, that they paid a 40,000 Satoshi fee moving the Lightning torch. And then it came out multiple people were running into this issue. So once again, the same person dug into the code. And this one is so fucking bad that I literally was able to figure this out just looking at the code. I didn't have to have somebody explain it to me. It was just that evidently fucking moronic. LND, the actual daemon running the Lightning node, has its own code to manage putting a fee limit on a transaction where the fee cannot be bigger than this. If I remember correctly, it's 1% of the value of the transaction. That is something that LND does on its own. For some reason, they replicate that in their own code, even though LND handles that by itself. And not only do they replicate that, it's inconsistent. And in one place, it's put as 1% of the payment value. In another place, it's 0.5% of the payment value. And there's also a fee being charged by them just for making a payment. I think it's 0.3%. Just for using a custodial service that is not advertised anywhere on their website, not documented clearly anywhere. And in trying to fix the issue of overpaying things, they left the replication of this LND function in their code. They left two inconsistent values in separate places for this, and they just added a Satoshi. So here, literally, they left the percentage calculations exactly the same, except added one extra Satoshi is always part of the fee. So in order to try and fix the fee being too high, they make the limit on the fee bigger. Like these people do not know what the fuck they are doing. They have no business coding a Bitcoin wallet, pushing people to use this, advertising for this. They do not know what they're doing. This is like the fourth time that they have fucked up a critical functionality in the wallet, refused to take responsibility, refused to actually fix it properly. They just slap something in and look, we merged code that fixes it, even though it doesn't fix it at all and doesn't even address the underlying issue. So, like, seriously, it is time to stop just acting like somebody put Lightning in front of something, or they're working on Lightning Network, so it's cool. Like, this wallet is a fucking mess. These people do not understand the fucking responsibility required for this, the seriousness of writing code that does something like manage money. They're not up to this. This wallet is not safe. It should not be fucking used. It should not be recommended to people because people are going to lose money. And I don't give a fuck that it's somebody doing something on the Lightning Network because they're doing a piss poor job of it that's putting people's money at risk. So stop using this fucking wallet, stop recommending this wallet, and start pointing out to people how much of a clusterfuck this is. Because this is going to blow up and lose people a bunch of money.
Shinobi, would you say using Blue Wallet is reckless?
No, I'd say it's fucking retarded.
What's the context here? Why did they start Blue Wallet, and what kind of wallet is this? Could you explain, because I'm not familiar with it?
It's a wallet that it's just a front end for a Lightning node that by default connects to their Lightning node, which is custodial, but does allow you to download their node overlay and connect it to your own node. Either way, it's completely fucking unsafe, and especially when you're using it in a custodial mode using their own fucking shit. And this is something I've actively seen being promoted. Like, they are going out of their way to try to get people to use this wallet. They have gone to conferences to shill this wallet. They do not understand what the fuck they are doing. This wallet is not safe.
Yeah, I mean, I've also been seeing it promoted, a few times on the LN Torch, where people wanted to participate but didn't really want to go through the barrier to entry part. And yeah, it sounds like, a balance issue is, yeah, that's really important. I mean, people's balances have to add up. I mean, putting the system at risk like that, luckily it's just like small amounts right now, but that's certainly not something that we should still just accept.
I've seen people with like hundreds or thousands of dollars on this fucking wallet.
Yeah, the torch is getting pretty up there, isn't it? But I mean, I was looking at their Twitter account real quick, and I mean, yeah, it's just like they're saying it's they're trying to provide security with simplicity, safe and accessible. I mean, those are those things where it's like, yeah, there's a barrier to entry for a reason, and this whole idea of just like slapping together quick fixes and just keeping these like everything so easily accessible. It's just that usually leads to trouble, to where there's a reason for that easy access, and it's going to lead to some issues. But you were saying the core issue is the way that they manage their database, and like what was
things. That was just the biggest thing that could lose people money. Like, they do not understand what they're doing with this wallet. They don't know what Lightning or LND does. They're replicating things LND does in their own code for no fucking reason. They're not taking seriously the importance of making an actual payment on Lightning and making sure that interacts with the user balance database properly. Like, they just don't know what the fuck they're doing. This wallet is a pile of shit and it's not safe. Like, these people do not know how to make like fucking secure, solid software to handle people's money. This is being treated like a JavaScript web app. It's not. It's a wallet to manage your money.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, we don't want bad development going on. I mean, there was a reason why a lot of people got burned in some of these, early exchanges and the way that they were set up. So, yeah, we should make sure that the development going on there is something that's worthwhile. And yeah, let's continue on because we do got a lot of stuff to talk about. And so, yeah, it sounds like we're good with Blue Wallet, I guess, on the comments. But what's going on, No Par, with Bitcoin Core?
Okay, so the next three segments will be very interesting. The first one is mine, next is Janine, and then me again. Some things surfaced on Reddit, which, if you remember, this was all over the topic when, even before Bitcoin Cash, even before when Bitcoin XT and all these not hard forks started back then, that what shall I say, Bitcoin core governance issues. No. Anyway, so I want to start this topic with a role play. And first, let's imagine that you are a coder. You are a good coder. You are okay coder, not a particularly great one, but you are a coder and you know C++. So you decide to contribute to Bitcoin Core. What are you going to do? How would you want to contribute to Bitcoin Core? You want to write a new feature. That's the first thing that new contributors do.
No. I want to just add a few refactors for unimportant stuff so I can put it on my CV and get a job as a Bitcoin expert.
No, okay. We can go with that. But you ask for it. So what happens if you do some refactoring? Then you break. There is like 100 open pull requests, and you break 30 of them, and the people just don't care about your stupid refactoring because there is no bug. So you are going to just rebase over months and months, and it's not gonna get merged in the end because it's just it's not significant, right? And this was the first topic that some people feel like working on Bitcoin Core is demotivating. In fact, I will read a tweet from a Bitcoin Core developer who shall not be named because Shinobi gets angry again. Working on Bitcoin Core can be demotivating. You need to find the source of an extreme patience. Most developers come from corporate culture where written code is merged code. In Core, even a simple fix may take months, but there is a reason for that. Don't give up.
All right, I'm gonna name him and call him stupid. His name is Jonas Schnelling. He's a big dumb idiot. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it is what it is, No Par. Like, this is the fucking nuclear engine that keeps the network running. Like, you have to be that careful and conservative. I mean, it sucks, but you should know that's what you're getting into.
Yes. And actually, we have a solution for that, but that's going to be my next segment. And now I want to talk about the Mythical Man month. Because a lot of people promoting Bitcoin Core to go, a lot of people, even I tell people to go work on Bitcoin Core or do some documentation if you want to get involved in Bitcoin. It doesn't even matter if you're not a coder, but this might not be a good solution. There is a classic book called The Mythical Amendment, and sorry for you Americans, it was written a long time ago. Can't recall his name. He was writing about his experiences at IBM from the 1960s. And the main takeaway was that the myth is that when you add a person to a software project, that you will get a person's worth of productivity. This doesn't work up to a point, and I think this is the most important thing what we can take away from Bitcoin core development, that there is so many people there that they cannot, that everything is just communication and administration, and it is improving in the pace that it should improve, but adding more and more developers is not going to make it faster or anything like that. So that's about it. And now it's your turn, Janine, to tell us how Jack wants to add more developers. Or what he's trying to do. I know it's not the whole thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a bit of old news now. I mean, old because it's like been, 3 days? But if you haven't heard, Jack Dorsey announced on March 20th that his company Square would be hiring 3 to 4 crypto engineers and 1 designer to work full-time on open source contributions to the Bitcoin/crypto ecosystem. And he claims that they will be able to, quote, work from anywhere, report directly to me, and we can even pay you in Bitcoin. He continued, this will be Square's first open source initiative independent of our business objectives. These folks will focus entirely on what's best for the crypto community and individual economic empowerment, not on Square's commercial interests. All resulting work will be open and free. Square has taken a lot from the open source community to get us here. We haven't given enough back. This is a small way to give back, and one that's aligned with our broader interests, a more accessible global financial system for the internet. And then he ended the thread by specifically appealing to Bitcoin core developers or developers in general working on crypto projects for free. And he said that they would be willing to pay those people for full-time work. And they've even created a new Twitter account called Square Crypto, which is currently following only one person, Hal Finney. And I'm not the first one to say this, but it certainly seems like a big deal for Jack to say that he will hire people who will report directly to him, considering that he already runs a few companies, including Twitter. So, yeah, a lot of people were enthusiastic about this. And yeah, I think it all depends on, who he ends up selecting, if he ends up selecting Bitcoin core developers or people in Bitcoin, or if he ends up, maybe he'll get pressured to have a diversity quota and, accept altcoin developers as well. Hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah, I'm very, very skeptical of this, especially with the language report directly to me. Like that is, I really don't like that. Like
I interpreted that as he wants to be involved and he wants to hear about whatever progress with what they're working on. I don't think he means you have to go through me to make decisions. I think he just means he wants to be involved in that discussion and that collaborative work.
Yeah, I agree. I think he just wants to know what's happening in Bitcoin world. It's that simple it is.
Yeah,
I disagree.
If you got that much of an investment, like he's doing Square Cash and he's working, with Lightning and, he's doing a lot in Bitcoin. I mean, it seems like, this was something we talked about in the past. It's just like, all this funding for development is just to get close to development and better understand it. And I mean, you got to, I understand, be wary because it could influence it. And that's just something we have to, wait and see.
See this? He should. what he should have done, if that was his intent, is not put out an open call on Twitter for anybody to apply. What he should be doing is looking for people already working on Bitcoin who need funding, like Luke. Like there are a number of developers still just putting in free time, not getting any compensation anywhere. He should not be making open calls on Twitter for anybody. He should be seeking out people who are already experts who need funding.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it doesn't really matter because most of the core, like a lot of the core developers make public who is sponsoring their work anyway. So it's not like it would be secret. And I don't know if it should be secret. Because I don't have any more skepticism of Jack than I would any of the other companies who were sponsoring Bitcoin core developers, and they also, a lot of them took a hands-off approach where, you know, they might ask them to, like, you know, give advice on their own products, but for the most part they just said, you know, give progress reports, but otherwise we're not going to tell you what to work on, we're just going to fund it.
Yeah, it's actually what I'm most interested in is this for independent developers, or he want to make them into a team and work together, because that would be just way more effective.
The crypto engineer.
It sounds like both
teams, and then one guy to just like contribute to open projects.
Well, he said 3 to 4 engineers and 1 designer. And it kind of sounds like because he didn't say it would be for Square's commercial interests. So it sounds like he would be funding just specific, you know, skill sets, and they would be working on open source stuff. Like maybe that would be open source stuff that's directly produced by Square, or maybe he's funding already existing open source projects.
So, you know, what reminds me this of, you remember how Ryan X. Charles started off? He went to be the engineer of Reddit. So that's how that turned out.
Yeah, but you know, I'm just saying, like, this is something that should be met with skepticism until we see what happens. Like Coinbase made the same song and dance, and then when Luke applied, told him work on Ethereum or no.
Well, okay, but I mean, what Betty does, it doesn't do anything bad. I mean, it just more engineers contributing with more code to projects. That I don't see how that would be bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, you know, like you're saying in the previous story about, it's just hard to get core development merged. And I mean, this just goes to show, I mean, it's like a high demand, you know, somebody to be a core developer that carries some weight. And I mean, there's a reason for all that time to get that sort of moniker. And, you know, yeah. So what else is going on with Bitcoin Core and wallets, nodes?
Okay, so we were talking about more people, more administration, and now we are looking for what's the solution, because it should be obvious for everyone that that doing something on Bitcoin Core should be very, very, very careful, because it's rocket science. One of the solution that Maxwell solution, or at least something that would improve on the situation that Gregory Maxwell was talking about already, that contributors should be more old-time maintainers, and contributors should be more like Linux toward this, or more aggressive towards people making pull requests, and say that, hey, this pull request doesn't really worth my time. Because if you're a maintainer of an open source project, then, well, I find myself in this position that right now there are 11 open pull requests already in Wasabi. There was never that much, and it just every pull request just takes my time away from coding, and they don't even like conform that much. And sometimes reviewing what other people are doing is just is more time intensive than actually doing it by yourself. So that's a hard thing to do administration. And what's the solution? I think a lot of developers are agreeing this to break up Bitcoin Core, but no one really knows how. The main idea is to, right, we have Bitcoin Core, it's a big software, and we started to take out stuff from it. Even Satoshi started to take out the marketplace and casino or whatever he built into that from the beginning. He started to take out things from this. But now we are at the point where we can take out the UI, because the code is separated already. The big question is that who would maintain the UI? I think there would be a lot of people, but who would make that code change that takes out tens of hundreds of thousands of lines of code, right? It's a really hard question. Anyway, so we have the node functionality, the API functionality, and the user interface functionality. So Bitcoin Core, the most risky thing to touch is the node functionality, and that's what Bitcoin Core should focus on. And everything else, the indexes, everything else should be outside of it. But again, who would maintain it and how? Because look at Core's UI. It's there shouldn't be so much discussion of if a label should be here or 5 millimeters to the right, something like that. It just doesn't matter that much, and it end up just being as a Stone Age stuff, like the node, where the node, it should be that touchy, but mentality of the developers go to the UI too, and that might be an issue. So separating Bitcoin Core into parts, and the core developers should work on the most essential things. That would be the best solution, because core developers would do what they like to do, and other developers would have a chance to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like that's an absolute necessity going forward, and something like they've been working towards for years. I mean, like, like look at the Sea Lightning architecture, where they have everything like firewalled and isolated in their own daemons with specific ways for them to interact, so that like things are more modular. You can pluck something out and replace it easier, or update something in one where you're not having to worry about the rest of it, except like, are you maintaining the APIs that let it interact with everything else? And I mean, like, that's an absolute necessity going forward to maintain this thing. I mean, like, even like when we get to the point where things start ossifying and we're not introducing new features or functionalities anymore, like, we still need that so people can maintain it, like isolate bugs and be able to fix them without worrying about the like ripple effects everywhere. Like that, like I am absolutely for like ripping the wallet out as a start to that. Like that's where we need to keep moving.
Yeah, indeed, the wallet functionality should be ripped out before after the UI functionality. But again, I mean, no one's doing that change, and they would only do that if there would be another or they would have to create another repository for it. It's a hard question, isn't it? I mean, for one, you have to be very, very conservative. On the other hand, you would be able to be much more conservative if things would be ripped out of it, but ripping out stuff from it is not a very conservative decision. So that's that's a problem there.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like, think about how, like, I mean, just look at like seriously, like C Lightning. Look at how that is set up. Like, key management is its own daemon. Like the main functionality of interacting with the network is its own daemon. Like, they're pulling things out into these plugins now that they've set that up, so that each individual functionality in a plugin can just be plugged. Like, all it's Lego pieces. You could just remove something, add something in, change a piece, and if it still fits in the whole, like, everything works. Like, it just makes things easier. And I mean, like, it's like, really, this whole move in this direction is literally just like a 10-year ongoing effort to fix the giant clusterfuck of a mess that was the code Satoshi created.
Well, that's true, but on the other hand, I mean, why would he create it in another way? So it's like no one really cares about this small project called Bitcoin. I mean, I just put everything into one repository, into one project, and be done with it. At least people can use it. It's not like people would be developers would be lining up to help out for him, right?
Yeah, it's like a bootstrapping phase in the lifespan of Bitcoin, and yeah, I mean, like, it does seem like we're going in that route in the discussions on Twitter and within the community, and it does seem like the node software is like the most important aspect, like you're saying, and the wallet GUI and everything's kind of just been like a, yeah, like an aspect that hasn't garnered much attention because it is not really that pertinent. And yeah, it does seem like we're kind of going into this more modular area of development, which is a good thing.
Yeah, maybe I should just add the core to Wasabi and make it the official Bitcoin core UI.
I don't think so, man. Everybody likes your UI. It looks pretty, man.
Right.
Alrighty.
You know
Let's
what
go
that
to the
sound
next.
Alrighty. So here we go. We ready, guys? We ready? Everything is fake. Nothing in this space is real. It's all made up. Everything's a scam. Okay, not really, but Bitwise Investments put together a 226 slide presentation for the SEC regarding their ETF filing. And pretty much the show notes only have a Twitter thread linked in it, but the third tweet has the direct link to the full slide presentation if you want to look at that. But a lot of the core of the presentation that really matters is in the tweet thread. So pretty much 95% of spot volume is fake. And like, first off, I don't even want to think about what the numbers are like for shit coins out there. But the real, like, pretty much the last time I looked, we were looking at like $10 billion in terms of exchange volume a day. And it's really only like 270 million. And really only around 10 exchanges show a consistent high level of legitimate volume based on their analysis. Most of them are actually regulated. I don't like that, but it does kind of smash the SEC's the whole market is totally unregulated argument into pieces. And the ARB spread is pretty much 0.1% for the most part. And pretty much what they're doing here is doing statistical analysis over the different exchanges. So the 10 exchanges that have more than $1 million of actual volume a day are Binance, Bitfinex, Kraken, Bitstamp, Coinbase, Bitflyer, Gemini, Itbit, Bittrex, and Poloniex. And I do want to point out that Binance, Bitfinex, and Kraken are literally 3 of the exchanges that people in government, that regulators, that morons sucking up to the state's dick have argued time and time and time and time again are just fucking wash trading and fake volume and bullshit. Well, hey, according to this analysis, those are the 3 biggest exchanges with the most volume doing actual legitimate volume. So suck on that one. Now, as far as how they actually analyzed the volume to ascertain this, there's really 2 mechanisms that they used in terms of statistical analysis. So first off, they looked at and constructed a histogram of the size of different trades. And in most of the 10 exchanges, you see a pattern where most orders are very small amounts. So you'll have a very high volume of small amounts of trades from a lot of different participants. And you can see pretty much a slope down from small amounts to larger amount trades on all 10 of these exchanges, with a little bit of a spike on round numbers. So like 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, so on, like people trying to cash out large amounts. And with fake exchanges, some of the examples on the chart are Coinbase, IDAX, LBank. I've never heard of any of these that are just completely, like, they look absolutely nothing like the histogram on any of these other exchanges. Although one thing I do want to point out here is OKX is listed as a fake volume based on the order size histogram, but it does really fit the histogram of order sizes of all of the exchanges that they're claiming are entirely legitimate volume. So that is something that's it really seems kind of suspicious to me that they are singling OKX out as a fake exchange when it's fitting most of the patterns they're using to ascertain exchanges that are legitimate. And the second metric that they're using is all 10 of these exchanges are pretty much almost identical in terms of volume. The volume spikes at the exact same time down to the hour across these exchanges. It goes down the same time to the hour. It's all of them are moving in volume amounts in lockstep. So they're all actually in the same market. There are people arbitrage trading between these. People are responding to the same things. Whereas if you look at a lot of the fake accounts, Cymex, Bit4X, Coinbase, they look absolutely nothing like these 10 exchanges. Like, they're consistently high volume that makes no sense, doesn't line up with actual market movements like the rest of them. It's like completely artificial wash trading. Like, there is no making sense of that data in any other way. And so when we kind of put all this together, it's not really that crazy. Like, if you look at the market cap of gold, that's around $7 trillion, and it does around 37 billion of spot volume a day. So that's about 0.5% of the supply turning over per day. With Bitcoin, it's around 70 billion in market cap. And from these 10 exchanges, it's around a 30 or a 0.39. So around 0.4% of the supply turning over. So it's pretty much on par with gold in terms of how much of the overall supply is being traded every day. And the arbitrage between all these exchanges is very efficient. Like, it's almost always within 0.1% in terms of price differences between these exchanges. between like 0.10 and 0.30. So a tenth or 0.3% difference between all of these exchanges. So there's a lot of liquidity and access in between all of these different platforms for people actually trading this arbitrage. And again, this aspect I'm not too fond of, but 9 out of these 10 exchanges have a money service business license and are regulated by FinCEN. The only exception is Binance. 5 of them have bit licenses: Bitflyer, Coinbase, Gemini, Itbit, and Poloniex. And so they are nowhere near as regulated as a security exchange, but they're all to some degree actually regulated. Again, completely flying in the face of the nonsense the SEC uses to keep denying ETFs. Bitfinex, Bitstamp, Coinbase Pro, Gemini, and Poloniex all employ market surveillance software to monitor suspicious or air quote fraudulent trades. And the last thing is when you remove all of the fake volume and just use these 10 exchanges, the CME and CBOE futures together were actually around 35% of the legitimate market. So one of the things people have been pointing at since these futures have been launched is that they're an insignificant fraction of the market. But when you narrow the market to these 10 exchanges that are pretty much the only ones showing signs of legitimate trade activity, it's a third of the overall market volume. So that's actually a lot more in terms of market activity going on those two futures products than the conventional just looking at naive volumes have led people to believe. And so Bitwise put all of this together and are pretty much, I think very rightfully telling the SEC that their whole argument about the market being totally unregulated is horseshit. And they're going to pretty much use just these 10 exchanges in an average for the index of their ETF, if approved, which is pretty much what the CME does. And so it's, it just goes to show that a lot of the fundamental, aspects of this market aren't really the complete and utter Wild West that people make it out to be. And I think that's something to really look at, both as a trader and investor. Like, accurate information like this is very important, but also just as somebody involved in this space or thinking about getting involved in this space, like, it's a lot more mature than a cursory glance would make you think.
In 2014, when I was still paying attention to the price, and everyone was looking at, every day I wake up, what's going on with China? What's going on with China? What's going on with China? China banned Bitcoin. China unbanned Bitcoin. There was this theme for a long time. Then I saw a report that 98% of the volume coming from China is fake. There was OKCoin, BTC China, and Huobi, and these things were faking the volume, but it doesn't really matter because everyone was looking at China, because the volume looks like China is owning the whole Bitcoin market. But the thing is that, what I wanted to bring this there. I think OKCoin, if I remember well, the CEO of OKCoin was the CEO of Binance today, which is quite interesting. Maybe he did bring the habits, the old habits with himself.
No, but see, that's like the thing. Like, Binance is one of the exchanges showing legitimate volume fingerprints. Like, they're not faking volume.
I misunderstood. Nice.
And that's that's what one of the things I pointed out. OKCoin, Bitfinex, and Kraken. are
Oh,
the three exchanges people most scream are manipulating and faking volume. And they're the three biggest of these exchanges that are not faking volume.
okay. Then my conclusion is the opposite, right? Well,
Rick, Janine, any input?
Just that, yeah, I mean, it's good to see this sort of report come out. And, like you're saying, I mean, it's kind of alarmist headlines, but whenever you look into it, it shows that, yeah, this is definitely good news on the whole ETF front and trying to at least put a little bit of more, I guess, some reporting on legitimate facts and figures on the market instead of it just being all, headlines.
So, next time people scream about how the 2x futures that wrecked everything for 2x and, Bcash is all manipulated core people volume. Nope. Wink, wink. All right. So I guess if that's it, you want to take us into what's going on in Japan, Rick?
Yeah. So, like we were saying, it looks like these pretty much regulated exchanges, as we'd call it, are doing the best. So, Japan has been one of the most prolific countries to use Bitcoin on a large scale with its light touch regulatory environment. Back in 2018, Japan's Financial Services Agency gave the industry an approved self-regulatory body to police and sanction exchanges. We covered that story in episode 134, Everyone Gets a Stablecoin. And we were excited about what potential developments this could bring for the industry, having this self-regulatory body. Well, now this Virtual Currency Exchange Association has submitted draft proposals to cap margin trading at 2 to 4 times the initial deposit, and it also splits the exchanges into 2 separate categories: those who engage in margin trading and those who deal in initial coin offerings. Lastly, it will change the registration requirements for exchanges from trying to prevent money laundering to being monitored in a way similar to securities trading. All exchanges in the country need to register under these new guidelines within an 18-month period after April 2020, when these rules are set to be enacted. Big brokerages will likely have to re-register, and this time frame gives the FSA the ability to crack down on unregistered quasi-exchanges who operate while their applications are awaiting approval. A senior FSA official said, quote, "We intend to motivate operators to do what they can to become registered," close quote. This is all an effort to help bring more stability to the marketplace while protecting investors from Ponzi-like ICOs. Also, it's trying to encourage more legitimate companies to use offerings as fundraising tools. The self-regulatory body of 16 separate exchanges have come to the conclusion that this is going to help the industry there in Japan. And yeah, it looks like a pretty big development and it's going to have a positive effect there for the industry. But what do you guys think about this?
I think, like Japan's always kind of leaned harder on the regulation side than other countries. So, I guess this really isn't too shocking, but at the same time, I think it's kind of very like nanny state and parental to tell people how much margin like they require for a trade. Like if they want to take a risk, then they should be able to do that. And it's give me my 100x degen, you fuckers.
I guess they're going to keep that stuff in Hong Kong, man. They're trying to keep their marketplace in a, yeah, I guess they're trying to keep that stuff out of the country. There'll always be a marketplace somewhere for that sort of thing. But Nopar, Janine, do you have any comment on Japanese margin regulation?
I agree with being that way. That Japan was always the country that was trying to play the daddy of other people and make sure what they can and cannot do. So I'm not sure what to take away from this actually.
Yeah, I mean, they were, like we're saying, the first to really kind of create this whole sort of system where it was accepted widely. So, all right, just going from that to another stark contrast from that story. The Central Bank of Mexico, Banxico, took advantage of a new law written to help provide guidance on fintech in the country to issue a circular that looks as draconian as the recent one issued by the Reserve Bank of India. This circular was published earlier this month, but hasn't garnered much attention until Coin Center recently pointed out how terrible these guidelines are for the crypto economy down there in Mexico. Coin Center says under the new law, banking access will be severely impeded. While the central bank can claim that they are not banning exchanges, the effect will be the same. According to the circular, cryptocurrency exchanges and cryptocurrency-related companies will have to get the rights to write permits to operate their business in the country. Those permits will only go to those who complete a company profile and issue detailed plans for their businesses. Each profile will have to contain the stated business model, transaction fees, and know your customer security measures. Then there is the most upsetting aspect of this directive. The central bank is also prohibiting any regulated financial institution from transacting with crypto-related businesses, effectively shutting off anyone in the country from having access to banking services there in the industry. Coin Center, Jerry Brito, and Peter Van Valkenburg say, quote, the new fintech law should have opened Mexico for innovation, but not only allowing cryptocurrency exchanges to continue operating, but also to provide them a reasonable path to better regulation as full-fledged financial institutions. The central bank, however, has now proposed to do the opposite, closing the door on these promising new technologies by prohibiting any regulated financial institutions from offering cryptocurrency exchange, transmission, or custody services to customers, close quote. All of this because Banxico says that the emerging cryptocurrency market is too volatile and too complex, and also has a propensity to be used for illegal activity. So pretty much the same song and dance we've seen for years to try and push people in these siloed systems of control or push them out of the system entirely. And however, we know this won't be helpful, and it will just hurt the average Mexican citizen. This is setting up Mexico to be in a similar position as other jurisdictions that have limited this technology. They'll suffer from having the stifled development to other nations far away and nearby. We've been covering the developing Central American countries who are using this technology to help survive times of economic uncertainty. While they are going through these dire times, they are at least becoming more and more familiar with the technology and how to effectively use it. I feel sorry for Mexico as it's stuck in the middle of many different dictators and a global superpower. Luckily, this shouldn't take effect until March of 2020, and there is a 60-day comment period in which the public is allowed to submit comments on the new rule set. So hopefully this circular will get shot down from the local crypto businesses and Bitcoin enthusiasts there on the ground. My fingers are crossed about that. But what do you guys think about this news?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because, I mean, this is definitely a huge overreach. It is definitely going to have a lot of effects for just normal people using Bitcoin in Mexico. But, I mean, with the cartels down there, it's not really that shocking to me that they would do something like this. If you don't try to implement stuff like this or actually finally take action to get rid of the cartels, I mean, it's really kind of just inevitable for organizations like that down there to start trying to use crypto for things. Like, I mean, like, Jesus fucking Christ, like HBSC or HSBC literally installed teller windows specifically sized to slide in the suitcases with cartel cash. And something like Bitcoin just would completely change the game in that situation. And so, like, I absolutely don't think that this is the proper way to try and deal with this, but it's not really that shocking. Like, that's probably something that is very worrisome to the politicians down there who aren't in the cartel's pocket.
And which politicians are those?
Don't know.
I could tell you from experience. I mean, like, I've visited Mexico about 5 or 6 times, but I always visit the Yucatan, and that area isn't governed by cartels. Like, I agree, most of Mexico is governed by cartels, but that's for the most part central and northern Mexico. The southern part isn't really faced with that, but I think that's maybe because those are just sort of like where most of the politicians do live right now. So it's a curious situation down there. I mean, like you're saying, it's not too surprising to know that, yeah, they're totally going to upset their business model, and they want to prevent that. But like we're saying, I mean, it's not really going to prevent it. I mean, if they were smart, they would just sort of, yeah, figure out ways to go ahead and get that all set up and going. That way, they wouldn't be, yeah, getting screwed over by HSBC or whatever.
Yeah, I really, if this does actually go through and go into effect, like it's definitely going to have bad ramifications for businesses who can't get the license, but I do not see this stopping Mexicans who want to use Bitcoin. Like they'll figure something out.
I mean, there was that town in Mexico that like the whole town accepted, I guess it was just Bitcoin. Might have been cryptocurrencies in general, but I know that there was like an anarchist town that was in, I mean, that's where it's like those cartel controlled areas of the country are really, yeah, I don't know, it's like going to Afghanistan. This valley's controlled, that valley isn't. And so this little town decided to, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's just going to hurt people. But yeah, anyway, so what else is going on? Where are we headed next, Janine?
Yeah, well, the big news item recently, first of all, in Block Digest episode 130, which was back in October 2018, we covered some articles published by the Wall Street Journal, which alleged that Shapeshift had facilitated money laundering of nearly $9 million worth of, I think it was mostly Ether. And prior to that, for episode 122.5 in September, Shinobi and I streamed a shorter episode about Shapeshift moving away from their more privacy respecting exchange model and implementing mandatory KYC with a mandatory membership model, which came out, at the same time that they were announcing the KYC, and it very clearly looked like it was coordinated to cover up, which actually Eric Voorhees actually acknowledged this. I noticed that he went on Peter McCormick's podcast recently, so I listened to that episode to see what he had to say about this. And one of the interesting comments Voorhees made was that Shapeshift not only lost customers directly because of that move, but other wallets which had integrated Shapeshift for exchange had made the decision to not subject their users to Shapeshift's policy change. So Shapeshift lost those secondary customers as well, and that was a hit on their business. And he also talked about his interactions with the Wall Street Journal reporter and claims that the interview was basically used to cherry pick information about their business and bolster this image of a money laundering operation in drug-infested Colorado. If you want to hear more about the complaints regarding the Wall Street Journal's allegations, you should listen to 33 minutes in from our episode 130 about that. But on March 21st, we had somewhat of an update to this story where Eric Voorhees tweeted a Medium post written by a so-called blockchain analytics company called Cipherblade. Has anyone heard of Cipherblade before?
No.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Nope. Yeah, I haven't heard of it either, but let's look at what they had to say in their post titled How Truth Disappears into the Black Hole of Shoddy Journalism. First of all, they point to flaws in the claims and methodology as stated by the Wall Street Journal reporters that demonstrate a lack of understanding for how blockchain forensics and Shapeshift's API works. For example, the Wall Street Journal claims to have worked with a blockchain forensics company, Elliptic, which remains unconfirmed. In fact, Elliptic's media mentions page on its website avoids touting any such partnership with the Wall Street Journal or even linking to the article. The Wall Street Journal says it downloaded transaction information on the suspicious wallets from blockchain.info and etherscan.io, the two common blockchain explorers from the Bitcoin and Bitcoin and Ethereum chain, respectively. However, that would have been unnecessary had the authors been using professional blockchain forensic software like Elliptic. They also note in the review that the Wall Street Journal has not open sourced this code or shown what data was used in the analysis. Coincidentally, Cipherblade has not done that either, as far as I can tell. So, oops. However, they apparently shared, the Wall Street Journal shared a spreadsheet of suspicious transactions with Shapeshift. And essentially, Cipherblade conducted their own analysis, and they claim they found potentially suspicious transactions that were not included in the spreadsheet, while a lot of the transactions that were included in the spreadsheet did not appear to be suspicious, as the Wall Street Journal claimed. To get to the chase, Cipherblade concluded that only about 25% of the estimated $9 million worth of Ether that was allegedly laundered through Shapeshift appears to have been analyzed correctly, and the Bitcoin portion seemed too small to even analyze. They only looked at the Ether. So they conclude, our firm has worked with Shapeshift on 11 separate investigations, all of which involved law enforcement. The requests for information were handled with a level of professionalism and timeliness that far exceeds any other entity in our experience in the blockchain industry. Every law enforcement professional that was involved in these cases, primarily FBI special agents, was pleasantly surprised by Shapeshift's speed of response and proactive cooperation. Cipherblade collaborates with the FBI on a nearly daily basis and holds regular discussions with varied law enforcement and regulatory entities, zero of which have ever aired dismay regarding Shapeshift. The Wall Street Journal's claims, allegedly by anonymous law enforcement government officials, are questionable at best. As one of a new breed of cryptocurrency intermediaries, Shapeshift contributes to investigation efforts through full transparency, collaboration with law enforcement, and even more proactive steps like blacklisting of wallet addresses associated with fraud, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if any of you feel the same, but when I was reading that, I could just imagine the now dead libertarian persona of Eric Voorhees rolling in its grave at such paragraphs being used to describe his company. But now let's return to the question of who the hell is Cipherblade, because I have never heard of them, and apparently no one else has heard of them. At the bottom of the Medium post, it says that their chief security officer is a guy named Richard Sanders, who, quote, served in the U.S. Army Special Operations Forces, rose to security lead at Google, and assisted Binance and FBI in development of GDPR protocol. That sounded like bad grammar. Well, I read it exactly as it was printed. They also say he works closely with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. He is a credentialed expert witness on matters of blockchain forensics. Oh, that must be an amazing job to be, the expert witness in what is essentially technological witchcraft. Now, if I don't know if that description raised any red flags for you, but I think the parts about development of GDPR protocol with the FBI and being a security lead at Google are laced with a bit of bullshit. I could literally find no reference to a Richard Saunders at Google except for the Cipherblade website and his LinkedIn profile, where he claims that he was hired as a contractor by Google at the age of 23. And there's also, when I looked in the IC Watch database, which has like intelligence, profiles of intelligence people that were currently or formerly posted to LinkedIn, there was a Richard Saunders who worked as a technician for the US Air Force, but otherwise his profile didn't seem to match, and I found no other Richard Sanders. I also found a Richard Sanders who authored a book titled If a Pirate I Must Be, about Black Bart the pirate who rose from third mate status on a slave ship to a pirate captain in a matter of months. That has some interesting parallels, but I digress. I was the only one, or I was not the only one who found this odd, to say the least. And Amy Castor has written a blog post that summarizes the weird circumstances of the founding of Cipherblade. I'm going to quote from her. Oops, I might have actually closed it. Damn it. I will open it quickly while you guys discuss for a second.
Discuss.
Discuss.
Well, Yeah, Cipherblade is definitely something new I haven't seen in a minute. I mean, like CipherTrace, I know them, and Elliptic sounds familiar, but Cipherblade, just clear out of I don't know, the abyss. Never heard of them.
So lately, I've been hearing more and more blockchain analysis companies I never heard of. Neutrino was one of them, and now everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, so this is what Amy has on her blog post. She says, Cipherblade is a firm with links to hundreds of shell companies and a director who has associations to Panama law firm Mossack Fonseca, I don't know how to pronounce that, one of the world's largest providers of offshore financial services, but I'm sure none of that means anything. The company is based in Pittsburgh. Its registered office is located at someplace in Southampton Row, London, and the company is incorporated in the Marshall Islands. On its website, the 8-month-old Cipherblade claims to have, quote, recovered millions of dollars of stolen funds, prevented dozens of ICO scams, and professionally handled PR disasters and other emergency situations. Wow, they sound like they're very prolific for a company that no one has ever heard of, even though the company was founded in August 2018. Oh, wait, August 2018. Wasn't that like right before the Wall Street Journal report came out? Odd. And you can file, she says you can file incident reports on Cipherblade's website. The basic cost is $100. Yes, $100 to file basic report. If you want to file a police report, which, I mean, that's actually a free service, but they claim that they offer a special service for people who are like in crisis situations and don't know who to contact or what to say. So they'll charge you $350 to handle the police report. They apparently take payments in Bitcoin, Ether, and Go. I actually don't know what Go is. It's a coin traded on Binance. Oh, great. And the company also says they accept cash, but only via bank wires. Interesting. And again, the only employee listed on Cipherblade's website is Richard Sanders, who's the chief security officer and co-founder. Again, he claims to have worked for the US Army and Google, but there are no other references to that anywhere. And she says a spokesperson for the company going by Matthew, no last name given, told me in an email that the company does have other employees. They just aren't on the website. And the reason he says they're not on the website is because they have to deal with nation state actors. Now, I find that quite funny, reading his bio and everything, because, clearly he has Army connections, or he claims to have Army connections. He claims to have FBI connections, all of these things. And yet he's afraid of nation state actors. I mean, I would consider him to be a nation state actor. I mean, I guess nation state actors can be afraid of each other. That's what makes their job so disgusting. But for them, hilarious for us. But yeah, I would consider him to be a nation state actor. And so even though I don't see any reason from this report by Amy, like she says, a few times in the post, there's nothing inherently wrong with using shell companies. I just find it odd that a company which is created around the time of the Wall Street Journal report would be tasked with defending Shapeshift for no pay, by the way. They were apparently not paid, without having any publicly facing employees on the basis that they deal with nation state actors. And then, yeah, so it just seems very odd that this whole thing is supposed to be scaremongering about, the bad Bitcoin exchanges are like operating money laundering businesses and such, and they're using the exact same tools in order to make their company to criticize the Wall Street Journal or whatever, and then praising the fact that Shapeshift is cooperating with law enforcement and all of that. So I still think the Wall Street Journal coverage is absolute bullshit, as we talked about on another show, and they clearly have a bullshit agenda where they criticize Bitcoin while taking a more lighthearted approach to things like Ripple for some reason. Someone, I think it was Peter McCormick, actually, he said during the podcast that he looked at the Wall Street Journal's coverage of cryptocurrency stuff and everything about Bitcoin was disparaging, but there was like positive articles about Ripple, which is really strange. So I'm not going to join in with everybody else and parade this review as Shapeshift's saving grace, because at the end of the day, I will never use Shapeshift either way, because unlike Eric Voorhees, I am not willing to compromise and use KYC services, especially ones that apparently work so happily with shady people like this.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, it would have been a lot better to see them, I don't know, hire some people to push back on that article initially to try and keep legislation in their favor for the business model as actually, to try and help the ecosystem. Because, I mean, we see this with the mainstream media coverage is always trying to control the narrative, to push their information, to draft new laws, and to say, like, these are the people that are following the law and not following the law. And so, I mean, yeah, it's kind of this whole blockchain analysis and the monitoring of it is just, like we've said over and over again, it's just like fancy guesswork. And it's really very, very difficult to prove that somebody owns these individual inputs. And this is one of these things where, yeah, it's just they're doing the same thing in our space to try and, build a narrative to say, like, well, we need this legislation to make sure that these exchanges aren't laundering money.
So I kind of feel for Eric. His whole business has been brought
Fuck
down,
Eric.
right?
This whole business has been what?
Has been brought down by outside forces. I really liked Shapeshift in a way. It was just so easy. Just I didn't use it for a very long time now, but it was just so easy. Just send the money and other money comes out, and man, it's just fantastic. And now look what it became.
Fuck Eric. Okay,
Uh,
he is a manipulative, weaselly piece of shit.
I think he
End
let
of
it
story.
happen. I mean, like, it's like some of this whole stuff we talked about a long time ago about these developers getting a bunch of money and, rise with the price. And then, like, what's the incentive to develop? And I mean, similarly, Eric was an early investor in Bitcoin and he's made tons of money. And, like, he doesn't really have to put up with this whole legal battle to try and help his position. He's fine off. I think that he just kind of like faded off, like, his values were, I mean, basically, yeah, he kind of just pushed all that stuff aside and said, like, I don't have the gumption for this fight. So I'm just going to let it take over me. Cause I mean, he could have hired a firm to actually do some work to say, like, no, we're doing our due diligence and, we need to push back. And he could have worked with some of these new people that are coming into this state that are trying to help the development of this and trying to explain like how this was something important. But that would have taken a lot of fight, a lot of investment, a lot of discussions. And I don't think he wanted to participate in any of that.
Well, on on Peter McCormick's podcast, he claimed that Shapeshift spent initially over $1 million fighting to not have KYC, but that they gave up because he thinks that this was the best decision for the long run of his company, which I completely disagree with. The long-term game is to not comply with, these orders to force KYC when it's not required. So
yeah, that was just the easier option, I think. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, $1 million seems like just over $1 million. I mean, that seems kind of, I don't know, not that much as far as like if you're really in the fight to try and change the system and bring out a new era of like individual sovereignty with people's finances and actually caring about all that. I just, yeah, I don't know. I think he just kind of got comfortable and said, I don't really want to fight this fight anymore.
Oh, and another tidbit. I mean, obviously, I don't really trust the integrity of this review, but according to Cipherblade, the Wall Street Journal claimed that 30% of the tainted ether was converted to Monero, and they found that it was only 5.5%, which is like drastically lower. And Zcash, I think, was also a portion of the funds that were converted in both analyses, but that was like less than 1% in both cases, because as we know, Zcash is not actually anonymous, so that does not surprise me.
Mm-hmm. You know, like Rick, the whole, like literally, Shapeshift's whole business model is seamless moving between cryptos without KYC, without having to register. That's literally the whole business model. So
Yes.
him deciding this is the best, I have to. It's literally, it's not like, okay, we gotta do this thing to keep making this business work. It's, I'm going to throw my business model in the garbage and piss on it. That was the whole business model. It's not that business anymore. Like that was absolutely and utterly retarded. Like, you're not an MSB doing that. You're not required to do that, and he did it anyway. He could have just not done it.
You should replicate that somehow.
There are other services that replicated that.
I was trying to.
Okay, this is not a recommendation on any level, but there is Sideshift, and then I think Changely is also another Shapeshift clone. But again, I have never used either of these, so don't take that as a recommendation.
Yeah, and I should also mention Changely was one of the companies that Cipherblade praised as being very cooperative with law enforcement in the review. So if that's a good sign or a bad sign for you people.
That's nice to know.
Yeah, it's Changely wasn't that frictionless when I was keep hearing about it. I don't know, 2 years ago or 1 year ago, maybe. Yeah, people were saying that it's not as frictionless as maybe you needed to register to that. Sorry, I don't want to say stupid things. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. It's hard to read between the lines on all this stuff and see who's actually doing a good thing and a bad thing, and you got to keep your eye on them the whole time. So, what else is going on with some of this different journalists and I don't know threats of payment processors? What's this all about?
Yeah, so this was announced at the beginning of March, I think. Let me find it really quick. So, yeah, at the beginning of March, Amy Castor reported that she had received legal threats from WB21, which stands for Web Bank 21st Century. And that's a Swiss incorporated payment processor that was found to possess about 12 million Canadian dollars worth of the missing Quadriga funds, and she wrote about how they have a history of suspiciously not fulfilling wire transfers and support queries when things go wrong. None of what she published was prohibited from being published for any legal reasons. So there's no legitimate basis for the legal threats that were being made to her, I think mostly email. And so once again, it's possible that this is another case where it's like someone who doesn't have a public presence who's making the threats. Amish Patil he's like legal counsel at WB21, and 2 days ago she tweeted that Anthony Payton, also I think he's another journalist, was threatened by this company, and he claimed that on January 9th, a thug visited my home address to warn me not to investigate a fintech scam story I've been working on. And he couldn't name what firm sent the person at the time, but he has since updated the thread as of 2 days ago, I think, to confirm that it was WB21. And so this is just a reminder that, yeah, when you challenge exchanges, whether fiat or crypto ones, they can be a lot like banks. Unless they are insolvent GOX 2.0s, one thing they are usually not short on is money, so they can certainly be capable of putting in resources to go after people who hurt their image, not just journalists, but anyone acting in their own personal capacity. And I think most people would be surprised how truly easy it would be to just scare or even compromise a person who is threatening one of these companies to the point where they shut up. This is something I was thinking about with the whole Coinbase fiasco, because it's like, oh, not only do you have Coinbase, one of the biggest exchanges in the cryptocurrency space, but you also have Hacking Team. Yay. I'd love to contend with people like that. So yeah, just a warning, and also keep an eye on this, because whenever people like journalists get threatened in this way, that means there's probably more stuff to look into.
Yeah, like we were saying in the last story about, the news controls the narrative, which drives legislation. So be worried.
Yeah, there's stuff to look into, like the plot of the spy thriller you're now in, so you can find out whether you die or not at the end.
Thanks. All right. Is there any more
Spy thriller, the spy thriller I am in.
Yeah, if you're the person doing the digging after the guy, threatens you, and you keep digging.
Yep.
Play into your own spy thriller story. All right. So, was there any more comment on this payment processor journalist?
Nope.
All right. Let's do a quick update from the recent story we covered on BlockFi's earned interest program. We covered this back in episode 162, and it sounded like a joke the way the mechanics of the system worked. It was using earnings from gambling with funds to return an earned interest of 6.2%. That was supposed to be an earned interest for accounts with over 1 BTC deposited or 25 ETH, with no real upper limit on the amount that could be deposited. Well, now anyone that holds over 25 BTC or 500 ETH in their BlockFi interest accounts will only receive 2% interest. BlockFi says they received, quote, unanticipated demand from businesses like crypto hedge funds and VC firms who set up large accounts to bolster their returns, close quote, which that's a pretty ridiculous statement. You would think they'd be setting up and advertising these high interest rates to attract that level of volume.
Like, oh, we were so successful that we can no longer give you money.
Wait, what? They're not following through with crazy 6.2% interest? What? Who would have seen that coming? I mean, it's not like people thought that was suspicious or wondering how they'd pull that off without continuing to depend on investor money, right? Right?
Well, apparently CoinDesk fell for this one hook, line, and sinker.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I mean, they got the interest, but so yeah, they are starting April 1st. Anything that only has a BIA balances of up to and including 25 BTC or 500 ETH will earn that 6.2% interest rate. And now they're also doing a withdrawal fee too.
I wonder if the people who, actually, get paid by BlockFi as a sponsor are going to be upfront and, honest about that. The ones who've been shilling them, because they give them money.
I think I know who you're talking about. And coincidentally, when I listened to that podcast, he said something about, I'm going to invite someone from that company to come on and talk about this because there's a lot of things being said on social media. It's like, yeah,
what?
buddy.
They're going to get another paid promo because they're giving them money? Wow.
It was quite hilarious because he said, and now a word from our sponsors or something like that. And then he talks about like, oh yeah, I have to talk to my sponsor because they're actually a bit shitty right now. It's like, I'm going to give them an interview.
Wow, it's almost, like you should kind of be responsible and think about what you're recommending to people who listen to you just because they give you money, right?
I mean, I don't expect that much from a guy who would put us on his website and then not remember who we are. So,
yeah, fair point.
Yeah, so that's a little update on that situation. It's definitely a little bit more ridiculous than we first reported. So another quick update on a long-running story now. Bakkt has finished their Series A funding round and has reached a valuation of $740 million. The first round of fundraising for the new platform was just completed back in December of last year, and at that time they had only raised $182.5 million only. So this round saw further investments from Microsoft, Starbucks, and the Intercontinental Exchange, as well as Boston Consulting Group, Goldfinch Partners, Pantera Capital, Protocol Ventures, and Galaxy Digital. The CEO of the Intercontinental Exchange is still saying they expect to launch sometime later this year, and we are still waiting to hear something from the CFTC on these new contracts. Investors are flocking to the hype of these new contracts, and Bakkt is still working in the background to secure their return on investment. Bakkt is set to only make 50 cents per contract, so we could expect the volume to be pretty heavy to secure that ROI. Earlier this year, the CFO of Bakkt, Scott Hill, said, quote, "Our investment in Bakkt will generate 20 million to 25 million of expenses based upon the run rate in the first quarter. A lot of things will need to line up for investors to receive returns that they would typically expect for a Series A," close quote. ICE has stated that investors have a right to equity redemption, which would return investors money in the platform if the platform couldn't deliver because of regulatory hurdles. The source of this information summed up the current state of Bakkt contracts, saying, quote, "If I was looking to buy a piece in the emergent regulated U.S. digital assets derivatives game today, I would look at a cheaper alternative which are further ahead in execution," close quote. So it looks like they're raising a good amount of money, but it also sounds like there's a lot of work to be completed in the background. But nevertheless, it's moving forward and still planned for later this year. But what do you guys think about this news? Is this good news, bad news?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. It's not putting them on the hook for things. And I mean, they're not even operational yet. They're almost worth a tenth of Coinbase. And like honestly, especially after the Bitwise report, that they gave to the SEC, I'm sure that's going to make its way over to the CFTC, and they're going to, hear about that. That's not the kind of thing that's not going to spread between regulators. But I think, like, especially given that, like, I still don't see any reason the CFTC is going to deny the proposal to self custody. Like, that's really the only thing holding this up. I mean, especially if you look at the market dynamic, the volume, like the fact that the CME and CBOE were already doing a third of legitimate market volume, and you look at a product like Bakkt, I mean, that's even like, imagine when Bakkt starts doing volume, how much of the market is going to be like fully regulated from the point of view of legacy players. Like, I don't see why they would shoot this down and prevent the market from moving in the direction that they want it to, which is more like regulated, like legacy class institutions involved. Like, it's that would make no sense.
Yeah, I think things have been lining up pretty good for an ETF. I mean, like, it's one of those things where I haven't really, I mean, we've been covering it, but every time I've just been like, yeah, they're going to push it. This could happen. But it does seem like there's just some activity with that, just different contracts and different news stories where it seems like it's more like just the Bitwise story we just did, and the way that the volume's looking. I mean, it looks like we're due for this as far as like giving an institutional players some sort of easy on ramp, off ramp that they can use at their regular exchange.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's really like this has to happen. Like, it makes no logical sense to shoot this down. Like, you already have futures markets cash settled that are a third of the market volume roughly. If you look at like the Bakkt's potential to grow to that same size as a spot, well, I mean, functionally a spot market because it's actually like physically settled. I mean, that's pushing the market where they want. Like, yeah.
SEC, wake up and approve those things. What else is going on with an exchange, the Gox guys?
All right, so Mount Gox put out a letter on the 19th. They have started pretty much emailing and made accessible on their websites a statement of approval or disapproval on rehabilitation claims. So pretty much if you actually have registered and you have an account on their system, you can log in through that to see whether your claim has been approved or disapproved. Users who filed outside of the web platform or offline will be receiving an email address informing them whether or not they've been approved or disapproved. And they've also gone through this process with people who have not actually claimed or filed during the civil rehabilitation based on the Mt. Gox account data. And the final results of whether those unfiled claims will be approved or disapproved are not going to be posted until after the actual expiration period of the claims process. But right now, as of March 20th, they have around $629 million in cash, as well as 141,000 BTC and 142,000 BCH. I really haven't seen anything regarding handling of BSV since the split, so I don't know how or if that's going to factor into anything. But the BTC and BCH is worth 593 million, and so pretty much right now, they have approved claims of 802,000 BTC roughly, which is around $3.2 billion, 792,000 BCH, which is $124 million, and $38 million in USD and other fiat currencies. So there's obviously a huge shortfall involved in this, and how that exactly is going to be handled is not really clear. I would wager a guess the most likely thing is just an even haircut across everybody, because there's just not enough to make people entirely whole when you look at the fact that a lot of the claims are in BTC and they don't have all of it. So this is kind of just slowly slugging along, and I guess if anyone out there has actually filed for this, then go check the website or keep your eye out for an email. And the next phase is the full expiration of this and deciding what to do with unfiled claims. And then after that, things will start progressing into actual delivery of assets or cash. And hopefully this can actually get itself finished without dealing with a whole bunch of horseshit from Brock Pierce.
Yeah, that's one of the comical parts of this whole story. Brock Pierce jumping into it, and yeah, I mean, I saw some tweets out there with some screenshots from people's emails. So yeah, just watch your inbox, see if that claim's coming in, because yeah, it looks like they've approved like over 800,000 in Bitcoin. Yeah, and like you're saying, they've only got like 140 plus thousand. That's a pretty big shortfall. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of wait and see. So I guess, yeah. Alrighty.
Did finish up a little early today.
Call it final thoughts. So I guess, Rick, you are up. This does not make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to say Craig Wright is a fraud and to follow Dan Darkpill. I think that's an all right thing to do.
I already follow Dan Darkpill. Why isn't he promoting our podcast? I fulfilled the conditions, Dan. What the fuck?
He's done a good job calling you guys toxic assholes and the threat of the year, and So I think most of our viewers do that too. So, but just thought I'd go ahead and shoot that out. I was just looking for a final thought this morning, saw him tweet that out. Thought it'd be funny. So yeah, Craig Wright is a fraud. Remember that.
You have a head full of thoughts, Janine. Let's go.
Which one's first? I can't see it on my screen.
Chelsea.
Yeah, so Chelsea Manning has been put into solitary confinement, and we know that because the U.S. government likes to use less harsh terms. Like, I think in this case they use, let me see, they use the term administrative segregation, which is essentially solitary confinement because you're spending up to 22 hours per day alone in a cell. And the UN has classified this isolation as torture. So that's great. She's being tortured again. I'm getting really pissed off every time I see news about this because it just makes me never want to go back to the United States again. I've already decided my children won't be born there ever. Don't even consider that. So yeah, I'm just really pissed about this, and please donate to her legal fund. I'll probably say that at the end of every show because that's the only way that I can get over how pissed I am.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely upsetting to see this is the way we've been treating our countrymen. I mean, just anybody, even our enemies. Like, trust me, that this whole torture thing is just as upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Janine.
Can you tell me what it is? I don't have
No,
view.
you have to look. You have to look. It's a thing.
Okay.
It's a thing with
Okay,
pictures.
it's Lightning Network. Okay, you could just said Lightning Network, and I wouldn't know what you're talking about. So this is this is a I mean, I've seen him doing stuff on YouTube a lot over the past couple months, and now he's released. I think it's like a document with slides explaining the bolts because I think even Elizabeth Stark recently said that they're written in a very high level fashion, which is not understandable by the average person. And so he's tried to break them down for people and explain what they mean. So that's really great. Unfortunately, this initial tweet, the link is actually, they're not for the average person. Okay. The slides are not for the average person, Shinobi. Are
No,
you trying to mess me up?
The bolt
Yes,
spec is for developers.
Yes, I know that. That's what I just said. That's what high level means. Whatever. Anyway, so he's made this like whole presentation of explaining the bolts. Unfortunately, you have to go a bit further down on the thread because the link in that tweet doesn't work, but you should check it out. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to that. And then the final thing, which I just thought was hilarious, is kind of an update on Delete Coinbase. Oh, for Shinobi, you must be blocked by that Mike Dudas guy.
Of course I am, because he got mad that, I pointed things out that made people look bad, and so he blocked me.
Okay, well, the tweet says that Ansel is referencing is a graph showing Coinbase's revenue from trading commissions, and apparently they are not doing so great this year. The block claims that Coinbase's monthly volume is only 6% of what the average was from a year ago. So I think that's wonderful news. Like, and all of you guys who are like clamoring for a bull market out there, it's like, no, I would rather wait another year, another 2 years even, whatever it takes. If that is going to starve Coinbase, I'm all up for it. So please continue with this trend.
Nah, we're gonna bull market and destroy Bcash, and then they're really gonna be screwed.
Oopsie doopsies. All right, so Nopar, you got a final thought before I get to my ultimate final thought, which is going to be way funnier than any of your guys' final thoughts?
Yes, I have two final thoughts, and the second one is going to be funnier than yours.
Nope.
So actually, the first one should have been my starting talk, but you guys were asking, how are you guys? How are you, Janine? How are you, Rick? How are you, Monkey? But no one asked, how are you, Nopara? So I
because nobody cared.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you remember last time I was talking about I was learning graph theory and I want to replace the data structure for Wasabi. Now I started coding it and doing that, and I'm starting to be really depressed about that because it's just such a fundamental change. I don't think I would ruin anything, but this is what Bitcoin programming is, right? You work a lot, and if it's too much, it just it doesn't always get into the software because it might be too risky. So Yeah, that's about that. Okay. So my final thought is that programmers are like women. If you have one woman, if you have one woman to deliver a child in 9 months, then you cannot just add 8 more women to deliver the child in 1 month, which has
All
I
right,
mean,
I'm gonna
have you
win.
tried?
I'm gonna win the funny awards. I guarantee it. I got this on lock. All right, you guys ready?
ready.
All right. Guess what? Guess what? On March 13th, Wallet Buyer, a complete newbie with 5 posts on bitcointalk.org, posted willing to pay 5,000 US dollars for an old mining wallet that mined BTC, but it must have mined coins between 2009 and 10, have mined at least 300 Bitcoin, either a wallet DAT file or raw private keys. They must have 0 Bitcoin in them now, and you're not allowed to use them again. And I'm going to buy up to 3 wallets in this criteria. So please contact me. Hey Craig, dude, nobody's gonna sell you their fucking wallets, you retard. That would completely dox them. Nice try.
Shinobi, you didn't even read the best part of it. At the bottom, it says send it to wallet buyer at Cockley.
Oh man, yeah, the desperation is real.
Yeah, this like who the fuck else is this except Craig Wright trying to find something to try and prove he's Satoshi because everybody knows he's not.
Rick, where is Richard Hart? Is he in the chat?
No. You said you don't think who else could it be? I said maybe Richard Hart.
No.
Alrighty though.
I believe his greatest claim to fame when we talked to him was that he's fired more people than me.
Alrighty, and no par. The surprise is tomorrow, right? I'm getting the days right.
Yes, it is tomorrow.
All right, everybody, brace yourselves. Probably nobody's gonna watch this live, but tomorrow at 6 in the morning Central Standard Time. I guess whoever makes it awake at that time from the Digest group and Nicolas Dorier and Pierre Rochard will be joining us for a special edition to finally hash out all of this neutrino stupidity.
And this debate is going to decide if it's going to get into Bitcoin Core or not.
Yeah!
It's going to be the final debate, everyone. So brace yourselves.
Yeah, so if you're an insane person, we'll see you at 6 in the morning tomorrow. If not, you can catch the replay and then regular episode at Wednesday. So until then, guys, adios.
Later, everyone.